All right, welcome everyone. I am absolutely thrilled you're here. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating and honestly most universal mysteries of human existence. In this explainer, we're talking about sleep. But we aren't just looking at the standard biology of it, the brain waves or the REM cycles. Science does a fantastic job explaining those physical processes. But today, we're going a layer deeper. We're looking at the source material to ask what actually happens in the spirit realm while you sleep. Because for literally millennia, humanity has suspected that sleep is way more than just physical rest. It's essentially a doorway into hidden dimensions. I mean, think about it. Have you ever woken up from a dream that felt, well, more real than reality itself? Have you ever had an experience so vivid, so intensely powerful, that it just stuck with you for days or maybe even years? We've all had those mornings where we open our eyes and the sheer emotional weight of what we just experienced is still hanging in the air, leaving us totally wondering what on earth just happened. And that really begs a massive question. Why do some dreams just seem like random mental noise, completely meaningless stuff, while others feel like they're carrying these profound messages, warnings, or deep spiritual insights? How is it that an experience we have while totally unconscious can evoke emotions that are just as intense, if not more so, than anything we experience while we are wide awake? One-third. Put this into perspective for a second. For roughly one-third of our entire lives, we exist in this wild condition where our physical activity drops, our conscious awareness completely shifts, and we step into an active, mysterious world packed with symbols and visions. A third of your life. It's a huge chunk of our existence spent in a state that kind of defies pure logical explanation. Okay, let's get into section 1, a shift in consciousness, relaxing the waking filters. So obviously there is a night and day difference, pun totally intended, between our waking and sleeping hours. During the day, our waking consciousness is entirely directed outward. We're hyperlogical, right? We're constantly bombarded by external stimuli, like our jobs, our conversations, our phones. But during sleep consciousness, that external focus just powers down. The ordinary filters that shape our waking perception begin to relax, and we shift to this deep inward focus. Many spiritual traditions suggest that this altered, relaxed state is exactly what allows us to perceive realities that are usually completely buried under the noise of our daily lives. Which brings us to section 2, the language of symbols, how the spirit communicates. Because our waking analytical logic is offline, the subconscious doesn't usually hand us a literal, straightforward memo. Instead, it speaks almost entirely in symbols. So, a mountain in a dream, that might not just be a rock formation. It translates to a looming challenge in your life. A river often symbolizes the flow of change. A door might signify a brand new opportunity. Throughout history, ancient civilizations didn't just use dream interpretation as a parlor trick to predict the future. It was a serious, core spiritual practice used by everyone from kings to everyday seekers to decode hidden truths about their inner conditions. And I love this realization from the source material. A hidden dimension of intelligence continues working while conscious awareness rests. Sleep is basically the sacred pause. During the day, we're just flooded with information and challenges. But while we rest, deeper aspects of our being are working overtime to process it all. This is exactly why countless thinkers, artists, and inventors throughout history have reported waking up with sudden, massive creative breakthroughs. The conscious mind clocks out, but a deeper intelligence clocks in. Let's look at section 3, encounters and spiritual warfare, the vulnerability of the night. Across pretty much every culture and tradition you can look at, people report these incredibly vivid nighttime experiences. We're talking about encounters with luminous beings, deceased loved ones, sweeping heavenly landscapes, or even divine figures. And look, whether you personally view these as literal, objective spiritual encounters or as just incredibly powerful manifestations of human psychology, they leave a mark. People consistently report that these encounters feel far more emotionally powerful than an ordinary dream. They feel undeniably real. But the nighttime isn't a totally passive experience, which introduces this concept of spiritual warfare. Now, actually, scratch the image of literal swords and shields for a second. The source material frames this more as a period of profound spiritual vulnerability, where our pre-sleep emotional state heavily dictates what we experience. So if you go to sleep carrying a ton of fear, anxiety, or unresolved anger, it directly and usually negatively impacts your journey that night. The source uses this absolutely brilliant soil and seed metaphor to explain how to handle this. Step 1, you have to cultivate peace before resting. Step 2, You plant good, positive seeds, things like gratitude, faith, or hope. And step 3, you harvest restorative experiences. Whether you look at this through a psychological lens or a spiritual one, the takeaway is the same. The mental and emotional baggage we carry into our sleep absolutely shapes the journey that follows. Moving into section 4, awakening your intuition, clarity from the unknown. Have you ever just woken up and instantly known the answer to a big decision? Like a situation that was completely baffling the night before suddenly makes perfect sense over your morning coffee. The texts suggest that sleep facilitates access to forms of understanding that just aren't always available when we're awake. Some people interpret this sudden clarity as the brain doing background problem solving. Others see it as direct spiritual guidance. But whatever the mechanism, the reality is that real wisdom frequently surfaces from these deeper levels of awareness while we're checked out. Which brings us to section 5, the sacred power of rest, reaching the core truth. Look, every single day, life places incredible demands on us. We spend our energy, our attention gets pulled in a million directions, and our emotions are constantly tested. The source brilliantly illustrates the antidote to this: holistic restoration. True human flourishing requires an equal focus on 3 things: physical, mental, and spiritual renewal. We usually just think of sleep as a time for our muscles to recover or our brains to rest, but ancient traditions and modern insights both point to spiritual restoration being just as crucial. Sleep is our daily opportunity for total renewal, bringing all 3 of these areas back into balance. And all of this builds to a fundamental truth. Rest is not weakness, it's not laziness, and it's certainly not just inactivity. It is a sacred, absolutely necessary return to balance. We really need to reframe how we view sleep. We aren't machines that just need to be plugged into a wall. We are complex beings who require profound transformation every single night. The unseen world is far more active than we give it credit for, and sleep is a literal journey into mystery and boundless possibility. At the end of the day, nobody can fully explain every single thing that happens while we sleep. And honestly, maybe that mystery serves a purpose, reminding us that reality is so much larger than our current waking understanding. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final thought. What will you discover tonight? Because remember, while your body rests, there might be a whole lot more happening than meets the eye. Life's greatest mysteries might just begin the exact moment we close our eyes. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this incredible topic. Rest well, and I will see you in the next explainer.